question, because we have a little bit of time, but this is directed to both participants. What are your thoughts on why is this an important conversation? Why is immigration important for our community to engage in conversation-wise?
I'll let the lady go first.
Well, we are a country of immigrants, and that process continues to this day. We've made it into a huge topic. It's part of the culture wars. It's part of why the economy is a mess. Immigrants have become a scapegoat for things we can't figure out. But I think it's important because we are human beings, and immigrants are human beings, and we're part of one world. And as long as we're part of one world, we must care about each other and respect each other and try to understand each other's realities. So I think it's necessary that we look at this, and our country, our government, ourselves, we are a democracy. We are investing an enormous amount of money in trying to stop, enforce, deport, detain, arrest, do a lot of negative things. It's important that we also look at how we can, and there are a lot of positive things happening. There are a lot of positive things happening with immigrants. Festival of Nations is a celebration of the rich heritage in St. Louis. So I think as human beings, it's important that we have a dialogue, we have a civil discussion about this issue and try to keep the humanness to it.
What was the question?
Why is this conversation about immigration
Oh,
important
okay,
for our
okay.
community?
Well, obviously, because it is next to employment in our economic situation, which it is tied directly into, extremely important because we have to survive as a nation. And that's what concerns me, the bottom line. Will the United States survive as a nation? We're already, and I'm afraid that we're going to lose most of the Southwest. Do we want to keep our nation as it is? If it doesn't make any difference to you, then I guess you don't worry about it.
What do you mean by lose the Southwest?
Because they want to break apart. See, there's precedent. May I take a second to explain?
Go ahead.
Precedent's already been set in England. Great Britain was one country under the Georges. You know, King George I, II, III, IV, V, VI. And now Scotland, and I've got friends that are barristers and solicitors over there, so I know how the system works. Scotland is no longer internally governed by England. But they stay on the, since England is the wealthiest component of the British Isles, Scotland, Ulster, and Wales are now semi-autonomous. And their local laws, for instance, in Scotland, they no longer use purely the common law, they use the Napoleonic Code as well. And so a solicitor in Scotland can't practice in England and vice versa. They don't have the same legal system. Only in international do they. But why then did Scotland and Wales do like Ireland did and just become a separate nation? Because of the money. Because England is the wealthiest industrially, even though they're bumming. And so they stay on the dole, and they will tell you this, they make no bones about it, because that's how they feed their poor. And this is where they get they call the welfare dole in the British Isles. And so that's the precedence that's been set. And groups like La Raza have seen this. And they would like to become like Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is self-governing internally, and they belong to us for some purposes, even though they don't pay federal income tax. Well, what they're looking at is sort of a Commonwealth status like Puerto Rico. For California, they got a name for it. Aztlan, A-Z-T-L-A-N, Aztlan, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. And that's what they're pushing for. Most of the Chicano groups, they don't call themselves Hispanic because it's Spain, Europe, so they call themselves Chicano groups. And La Raza means the race. And they would like in Arizona and in New Mexico and Texas, which are all majority non-white now, Hispanic, would like to break off. Now, I'm not talking about all the people or most of the people, but the organized efforts. In the prisons in all 4 of those states, the Mexican mafia is what they call themselves. They take lessons in the prisons about their Aztec ancestry. They have to teach them to speak certain Aztec words, and they're using their Aztec religion instead of Roman Catholicism. And this is big. You just don't hear about it here. But it's big out there. This whole movement of not being a part of the United States, not being a part of the gringos, the Anglos. They want their own government. Now, when they go so far as to break off and become a separate nation, they aren't that foolish. We still got most of the money over here. And so they probably want to keep a Commonwealth status. But that is the goal of the groups like La Raza Bomb. That's just the way it is. Anybody want to dispute that?
Well, the Council for La Raza, I've never heard any of that rhetoric. So I don't know. I've not heard the rhetoric that you're using. If people from Mexico want to understand their Aztec heritage, that's like any more than your Pennsylvania Dutch or whatever heritage I want to remember in my own background. And I've never heard out of any of the groups that I've dealt with anything about a separation, and I do pretty widely connected. So I'm interested to know, and I will double check that because I've not heard those
If
things.
you find difference, call me.
I will. But at any rate, this is important because we're seeing, even in this conversation, totally different, not total, but different worldviews, different ways of approaching our heritage, different ways of approaching the way we deal with the people that we live with. So I think we just have to step back and reflect. Who do we want to be? How are we? How do we want to move into the future? The other piece that comes to my mind about immigration and immigrants, the workforce of the future is going to depend on people coming from somewhere else because we are gray. The median age in this country is nothing like it is in the global south, where somewhere between 18 and 25 is the median age. I'm one of 7 siblings. All 7 of us produce 13. You know, so we're not replacing ourselves. Either we're not going to have jobs and we will, I don't know how we'll live, or we're going to need to have people do things. And we don't have enough young people to do it. So there's that aspect. The jobs have gone. Education is not what it was when I was coming up. And people are not prepared well to take on jobs. We have a lot of social problems of people that are not ready to integrate into society. We have a lot of prejudices about people. We need to live together and listen to each other and learn how to be together as a people. And we are changing, and it's not easy. We have things that we've held on to. I mean, you've presented a lot of views that are of your generation. But things are changing. Our children are going to teach us stuff that we never thought about.
I don't agree with that. The young people are waking up. The vast majority of people who are joining our organization are young people, ma'am.
Right?
The young people are fed up. They're not changing.
Well, it depends on
Maybe
what young people
maybe
are
at the
wearing.
college they're telling them that, but not in the people out here. The young people are not buying into it anymore.